Let's break down my favorite style of rigging. I love side swinging huge limbs out over the top of obstacles. So when hinging a limb sideways, the weak point in that setup is going to be the top side of the hinge wood where it's circled in red. That is going to be what's most likely to fail, and we're going to lose that horizontal limb in the direction of gravity, which is the blue line. In order to compensate for that, I'm going to tie a rope onto it. Typically, I like to only tie this rope out about as far as I need to support that topside hinge wood from failing. This also requires a good deal of pre-tension, so typically for this kind of setup, I'm going to use the Hobbs lowering device. When rigging huge limbs like this, body positioning is really important because the biggest risk here is that this piece comes off the hinge wood early and actually shoots back at me and impales me, so to speak, which would be a bad deal. Now, you'll see I kind of start to use the tree a little bit to protect me here. The rigging rope is tied onto this piece about midway, so right around what I thought would be the balance point, and then it was pre-tensioned significantly with the Hobbs lowering device, and then the rope guy does the rest. Instead of making my notch directly sideways, I'll actually aim it towards the ground a little bit and let gravity kind of help get the piece moving initially. And then the rope, the pre-tension line, will actually take the piece around in the direction of the blue line. This piece here leaned heavily and was limb weighted towards the line to the left, and we want it to obviously go all the way back around to the right. So the notch kind of splits the difference, and I'm using gravity to help get it going. If you notice what I'm cutting with the saw, it's the lower side of the hinge because I want the top side of the hinge, the weakest point, to be thicker and kind of help pull this limb around. Also, note my body positioning as I kind of retreat away from being directly in line with the butt of that piece. Here's another example. The notch is pointed directly at the green chipper. Back cut falls in line with that, leaving the hinge wood thick on the top and letting the piece follow the rope around. So with anything in tree work, your biggest potential for injury is usually struck by. So let's talk a little bit about that. The piece is always going to want to come back plumb with the rope. So when mid-tying pieces, the biggest danger to the climber is the butt coming back and spearing him. And as you can see, the blue man has taken it to the face. So the top picture here is a view from the top of the tree. The green line represents the distance between the limb being rigged and the terminal rigging point, and the red line is the rope. Now, the bottom is the limb, and the right side is going to be the stem where I'm making the cut. So the green line shows the distance between where I've tied on the rope and where I'm making the cut. Ideally, I want the top, the distance between the rigging point and the limb, to be greater than the distance between where I'm making the cut and where I've tied the rope on. This cut here was a perfect scenario where the rigging point was a pretty good ways off to my right. I was rigging a piece out over a primary, so I was able to tie the rigging rope out pretty far to ensure there was no way that the tip was going to drop down towards the wire. I actually used a tag line here to influence the direction. Heads up, hold it. All right, you're good. You saw it kind of balancing towards the wire. It's good now. Here's a piece where the rigging point really wasn't all that far away, so I only tied the rigging rope out just far enough to support the hinge wood to get it to swing around to the right away from the wire. Ready? Here's a few more examples of the same thing that we're talking about. Just my main focus with these clips is just noticing the direction of the notch and how I'm using the tip of the bar to cut out the lower side of the hinge and leave as much as I can on the top. If you're not familiar with this style of rigging, or if you're practicing, it's important to build up to the bigger pieces, because you can definitely die rigging like this, just like with anything with tree work. So starting small and building up to bigger stuff is really, really important. Hit me with a thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe, comment, and hit me up on Instagram at zigzagman.zr. Thanks for watching.